Let's shift gears a little bit in terms of talking about what we need to go over today. In this particular case, I want to talk about cause-related advertising as well as just corporate social responsibility in general. And this is kind of an interesting topic to cover over, mainly because there's just so many examples of it in terms of organizations that partner with non-government organizations, and please make sure you pay attention to that word, non-government organizations. We're also going to call them NGOs, and I'll refer to them the rest of the video as an NGO in this case, or it's kind of cause related. So although we're going to talk a lot about advertising, it's something to consider when it comes to how people use public relations as well to provide a civic duty within the community. Because this is what corporate social responsibility is all about, and will lead to the discussion question is the idea of responsibility. And is an organization, so think of a major organization in our area, like Walmart, for instance. We have a Walmart here in Boone. Are they responsible for civic engagement? Or is this something of an organization that just needs to make money? And how does that reflect in public relations as well? Do you think it's something that they need to be able to do? It is their responsibility to do? Or is it something that they should choose to do in this case? And so there's a lot of different considerations when we're talking about social responsible advertising as well as PR. And if you're into marketing, I think I may have mentioned this before. One of the things that we're talking about within marketing is the 4 Ps. So if you've ever taken a marketing class, you may have heard of the 4 Ps in terms of price, placement, product, and promotion. Whereas there's some new studies out there that talk about how the 4 Ps should look at product, people, and planet. And basically what's this saying is that there's so many products out there and so many organizations out there that have similar products as to something that you might be able to have if you're representing an organization, that we've got to make ourselves stand out. And what is one of the ways that we do that? Well, one of the things we can look at is social responsibility. And in this particular case, it's kind of an interesting scenario because the ethical considerations exist whether or not, first, they should be responsible or not, and B, is it something that we're only doing because people like it? And this is something that studies will explain, that people are more willing to purchase products and donate to organizations that have good causes attached to their names. And good causes is very vague in this case, because this may be something that we promote good causes based on the environment. We may think of good causes based on our relationship with our country's veterans, employees. We may think of it in terms, there's just so many different areas that we could come up with in terms of what makes something corporately social responsible. Giving back to the community. Again, a lot of different things that we can come up with here. So let's start off. And so I was going to do that again correctly again. Socially responsible advertising is not inherently marketing. So you could say organizations that have now decided to get away from plastic straws could be good social marketing. Whereas social responsible advertising focuses more on the case of us promoting that we're not using those straws anymore. But they are cause related. So again, it can be industrial, it can be environmental, it could be employee related, it can be linked to things like prevention of certain diseases. It can look after relief for people who are going through like hurricanes or natural disasters in general. It can be looking into cause related in terms of our self-image and our self-worth. In this case, Dove has been doing this for ages, doing the Real Moms campaign, institutional ads linked to social issues, causes like Microsoft, the '84 Lumber Super Bowl commercials is another case, and product that institutional ads with corporate contributions, Walgreens, give a shot, get a shot, so forth. You could even look at, for instance, one of the most recent examples is Domino's paving roads, which kind of befuddled me the first time I heard it until I considered, well, they must really care about people driving their pizza home on carryout, and so they're doing a responsible thing by contributing to the community and working on the roads. Now, it is important to mention with any of these advertisements, any of these marketing, any of these PR schemes, that it is based on what you are committed to in terms of your ethics. And your ethics may say, I want a company that is good with employee relations, that they treat their employees well. So you may look at Hershey's, for instance. You may look at Ben & Jerry's, for instance. Whereas you might say Walmart has had a bad reputation for something like that. Whereas if you are considered environmental, if the environment is a major consideration within what you consider cause-related, Walmart might be right up your alley because they donate a whole ton of money for it. It is becoming more and more popular to see social responsible advertising. I mean, we just saw within Walmart, in terms of the green light promotions of welcoming veterans home. One of the most interesting campaigns was the KFC bucket. So KFC partnered with a NGO you probably know pretty well called the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Awareness Foundation, where KFC worked with Susan G. Komen and created a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and 10 cents were donated to that particular organization. So it ended up being one of the largest CSR related advertising campaigns that was the most successful in history. I think it still is. Even though, ironically enough, the number one cause of death for women is heart disease. So I think I mentioned that one. One I haven't mentioned before, and I know I haven't mentioned before, is the game developer, I think it's Blizzard, who created the video game series Overwatch, and having a character, what they call a skin, which is basically an outfit that a character in the game uses. And in this case, it was a character by the name of Mercy, and she has a pink outfit, and the proceeds for anybody to purchase the skin for this character would go to breast cancer awareness, and it was extremely successful. And in general, consumers are more socially responsible. We typically buy products that have social responsibility. One you could look at is Dawn, for instance. I have several friends that purchase Dawn because they like watching the cute commercial of the little ducks having oil wiped off them with Dove dish soap. Excuse me. And consumers believe that corporations have social responsibility. Like, this is their obligation. It's not necessarily so much that they are exclusively around to make money. They have to contribute to their community. And again, social advocacy and nonprofit NGOs, in this case, seek help of corporations actively. And this helps with in terms of creating good. It's a win-win for both, because one, a nonprofit, may not make as much money in this case, and so These big organizations can help sponsor certain events and so forth. And those proceeds go to the NGOs that they're working with. And the NGOs kind of humanizes a lot of organizations that we wouldn't normally associate with, but may, again, an emergent public, for instance, can work both ways. If we're looking at it from a PR perspective, you can have a public that doesn't really care about your organization until they do. And what I mean by that is they may feel fairly apathetic or ambivalent or indifferent to your organization until you do something wrong. And then if it's within their realm of morals and ethics and values, they may care significantly now. And that can work in a good way as well, where we may say, I didn't really care about this product, but good for them. Good for them doing something for education, for instance. And then corporate stakeholders have also become more socially responsible. I mean, these are your billionaires that make sure that they do, again, responsible things to help within their community, to help their organizations look better. So the intended is to get consumers involved in a range of social issues, and sometimes these are things that we don't think about, and so this would create awareness for certain issues. And I don't know if. Well, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Increased consumer intention and comprehension of ads, and this can play a good role in terms of how people retain things, because this was another thing in terms of there are studies to indicate that people are more likely to retain and recall information based on corporate social responsibility than they are something that's just about their product. May improve transparency, may improve ties with stakeholders, investors, policymakers. This may be a major benefit, especially when it comes to transparency, because this, again, kind of humanizes the industry in terms of whatever you're in, and how it might help in terms of creating a stronger, more positive image that you are giving back to a community. May increase message credibility. And this can work really well in terms of within crisis communication, is if you're handling things well and how you recognize it. There's a really cool instance of fandom, for instance, where I talked about this in one of my crisis communication class, where two soccer teams, one was named Borussia Dortmund, they're out of Germany, and the other is AS Monaco, they're out of France, and they were playing a game around Cologne, where Dortmund is, and tragedy really struck as there was a bombing on the team's bus. I think only one person was hurt, but it was something that they had to suspend the game. Well, think about this from the perspective of any French fans that decided that they wanted to come to this game and now are essentially stranded to an extent. So what was cool, now granted, this didn't have necessarily anything to do with the organization per se, but this worked in terms of building goodwill. Hey everybody, sorry about that. A bit of a technical difficulty there, and also I'm dealing with a lot of sounds outside, so I'm trying not to be distracted here. I was mentioning right at the end of my clip, and again, sorry I stopped it abruptly, was through crisis communication and really promoting the idea of improving corporate image and building goodwill. And an example I can give you was actually a really cool one, and this is talking about how an organization handled what would be considered a crisis, and really handled it in terms of establishing good advertising and PR as a way of goodwill internationally. And this story kind of involves two soccer teams. One is named Borussia Dortmund, who actually played in Charlotte a couple days ago, as well as AS Monaco. Now, Dortmund is based out of Germany, outside of Cologne, and Monaco is in France. And both of them had a match, and it was at Dortmund's home stadium. And so what occurred in this particular instance is the fans, or excuse me, first what happened was a real bad crisis occurred when there was a bomb on the Dortmund bus. Now, I think only one player was hurt, nobody died, but it was something that obviously put up quite a scare, and they wanted to make sure that they took every single protocol necessary to help with the situation at hand. And one of the things that occurred was there were a lot of AS Monaco fans that were stranded because what they were saying that they're going to postpone the game. It'll be next day. So you can have your tickets, but it is something that you'll have to wait the next day. Well, a lot of AS Monaco fans are probably sitting there going, well, that's nice, but how are we going to stay an extra day if, in fact, we don't live here, obviously? And so, now granted, this is where the social media scheme and Twitter, for instance, or in fans on Twitter really came in a really awesome way. And they did it was a hashtag, I think, Beds for Away fans. And this became really popular amongst the Cologne area. And so what happened was they basically said, hey, look, we know you're away from home. We know you need a bed. If you want to stay here, come crash at our place. And so they delivered this hashtag and had away fans come join the Dortmund fans. And what occurred in good fashion by Borussia Dortmund, the organization, is they said, hey, pay attention to this hashtag. We want you here. We want these away fans here to watch the game. So pay attention to this hashtag. Find a place, and we'll look to help you as well. And they did. And it was a really, really cool instance of promoting goodwill and really improving their corporate image to the point where there were a lot of great social media messages as well as chants within the stadium thanking Dortmund for letting them stay the night. And it was such a cool, feel-good story in this case. And I mean, going to a soccer game is pretty frivolous. You don't need, I don't think it's a necessity to go to a soccer game, even though it is cool and fun and interesting. But it is something that, again, can really justify some of these expenditures if you feel like it's something that you don't necessarily need to be spending your money on. But it may make you feel like this is a good cause to be going after. Unintended, though, and a little bit some of the negatives in this case is that there are terms like environmentally friendly and eco-safe that may mislead some consumers in terms of how it's framed versus what it actually does. And this may become a big problem here. It also can increase feelings of futility and fear. Again, if organizations aren't doing these things or feeling like there's a problem that you weren't aware of. And again, they can be very good things, but also they can promote this idea of not feeling safe in this case. Some may be opportunistic. You can look back at the KFC example. Honestly, anything within, we could look at paid advertising within veterans affairs with social responsibility, or the Breast Cancer Awareness Month of October, which is obviously a wonderful and positive thing, but can go wrong when organizations just kind of get their tie-in just because it's October, just because they feel obligated to be able to broadcast their organization during that time. This was made fun of by John Oliver in a sketch talking about SpaghettiOs, for instance, and talking about their support of troops with 9/11. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about here in terms of exploitation is match. And that's, I think, listed on the next, relevance and fit, right at the top. The main thing that we have to be concerned with is does whatever's being advertised, does it fit with the product that it's being associated with? So, for instance, you could look at the Domino's ad and say, well, that seems like a dumb fit for paving roads and so forth, but it actually is pretty brilliant because, delivery drivers and to carry out, you have to take your car for getting pizza. I mean, that's just kind of the way it works, and it's very synonymous with it. So why not improve the roads? Whereas, Susan G. Komen with KFC, well, that's kind of sent as ironic, but it worked. So, what do we know with relevance and fit? It needs to be clear. It needs to demonstrate some aspect of caring, assess commitment to whatever's being said. This is another area here where Starbucks, for instance, has gotten in a lot of trouble from time to time for particular advertisements. Well, if you look at their mission statement, it actually makes sense why they would be committed to certain things because it matches with what they're trying to do. And cause and company. Again, you are a for-profit. So, you can look at Appalachian Mountain Brewery, that they are a for-profit, and as much as we want them to be cause-related, they are there to make money. And is there anything wrong with that, per se? Is it good that they're even doing things to help within the community? And they've got it within their mission statement. Provide solutions and track results. See what works, see what doesn't work. Typically, the best possible result is if you have something within your mission statement that advocates this area of CSR. The good thing is, though, most people don't really care when you're in a startup organization. They like when big organizations are socially responsible. But for the most part, if you are a small company, nobody really cares. So that's what a lot of, I'm like overly generalizing like crazy here, but this is supported by research that indicates that it's not until you become much larger do you feel like you have to be part of this civic culture wherever you belong. So again, all these things are really interesting to consider and really touch base on the pros and cons here. So, but something to think about, and I want you to think about this in terms of, again, do you think that organizations have to feel responsible for being a civic member of the community that they're in? So, food for thought. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but we will get into social media as well as digital advertising here in the next couple days. So that's it from me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Keep me in touch with the projects that you're doing, and we'll go from there. Thanks. Bye.